I had seen her work. I had seen her work in Gehraiyaan. I was very, very impressed by the way, she performed, especially in that film. We wrote the film, and it needed a very definite young actor who, almost in a way, and Ananya will kill me if I say this, but almost in a way is very trollable in that sort of sense. I think actually Control is probably the closest to it. 95-minute film. It's tight. It's fun. It's got great music. We landed on this idea, and that was when then like, okay, this is exciting. This is like you really want to be able to do something which is new and unique and fresh. It was mostly shot on iPhones. Actually, I think 80% of the film has been shot on an iPhone.
Hello, Vikram. It's lovely to talk to you about movies and your directorial choices. That's going to be my focus.
Okay.
Because I think your choices are pretty diverse. You have shifted between different genres. So how do you make these choices?
I think it's whatever's exciting in the moment is always, and whatever drives you in the moment. And that doesn't necessarily mean, it's not necessarily excitement. I think sometimes it comes from, it comes from a different emotion at some point in time. So I was just discussing this today only. Where, I mean, for example, Bhavesh Joshi came from a place of great anger, or, the AK versus AK just came from just like the excitement of the fact that, oh, this is so interesting and unique and cool. And I think so for Control specifically, I mean, I love the screenlife format. The first time I saw Searching in a theater, I was just like, wow, this is so cool. The fact that you can tell a story like this only on screens, which is like, whether it's YouTube videos or sort of like FaceTime chats or any of these kind of things, which is something that you don't realize, but we've also, in the last 10, 15 years, we've just made it a part of our daily life all the time. We're always typing chats, or we're always, looking up something on Google, or we're doing video chats with our, with family or work. And now post-pandemic, so it's become even more of a. So I think when the idea kind of like sort of came along, and it was more, first it was an opportunity that, oh, would you like to do a screenlife film? I'm like, why not? Let's try one. Yeah. So then me and Avinash, the writer, we started to ideate on this. And this is during the pandemic. We have all the time in the world. तो कुछ नहीं है, तो बात करते रहते हैं. And then we landed on this idea, and that was when then like, okay, this is exciting. This is like you really want to be able to do something which is new and unique and fresh. And I am a bit of a nerd also, yeah. So I like the fact that, oh, this is going to be like character talking to an AI. How do you shoot it? How will you do it? So I think part of the challenge is also what drives you to be able to say, हाँ चलो कुछ करते हैं. So
did you think that you were throwing in a bit of eternal sunshine of the spotless mind into it?
It's like it's like, in a sense, it's almost like that is, for those who know the film, there is a bit of a wink in the entire fact that, when you're talking, but of course it's not about erasing your own memories, it's about erasing. Today we all have now, look at all our phones. I'm saying each was at least has some 20,000 pictures on the entire sort of stuff. And what if like all those pictures, within those pictures there's somebody you don't like anymore who's in those pictures, then what do you do? So it comes from that kind of like, that's the hook on the entire thing. And then there is an AI character and there's all that sort of stuff. But the hook sort of comes from your own, and today like how do we present our own media? How would we present our own kind of like timeline, our own memories to the world? There is a certain amount of, you're trying to show your world to be perfect, right? And what is perfect? What defines that? And I think there's a lot of that as well.
I just saw the trailer. How did you create that AI character?
So, the AI character is, how we shot this, and it's an interesting process, because what we did for shooting this was, it was mostly shot on iPhones. Actually, I think 80% of the film has been shot on an iPhone. So what we did was, we had Nella's character. She had a laptop and she's talking to the AI character, and we are mocking up for the shoot a Zoom call. So she talks to the Zoom call. On the other side, there's an actor who's got a motion capture camera in front of them. That motion capture camera is being fed into Unreal Engine, where we've got already the character that we have created, and now that character starts to speak like an AI because the motion capture is coming in, and that footage comes in, and then she interacts literally with an AI character while she's shooting the film. So that's what I'm saying. The part of the challenge is because it's so geeky that you're like, the challenge of how to shoot this was, I think, part of the reason to make a film like this is just because of the challenge also. I think it's exciting.
I'll come to that later because, I can ask you now because you right now you have done. This is a movie, and you have worked on a docu series. Then you are working on another docu series, and then we had Jubilee, which is again a fiction series. So how is it moving between these formats and stories? What is your process?
I think it's very exciting. I think like we live in a time where we don't have to, and maybe 10, 15 years ago, and we all know that time when you could only make movies for the cinema. You had no other option. So the movies had to be, you could make either big commercial films or you could make somewhat parallel cinema, and even that died after a point. And then it's the kind of movies that I was making, Anurag is making, where it's like, yes, there is potential for this to be seen by commercial audience, but you're still making it thoda smaller scale. But again, it was only theatrical. So you had to make it, wohi do ghante ki picture, had to have an interval, there's that kind of stuff. I think with Netflix and the streaming services coming in is the fact that the formats are best served to the story, or the story is best served to the formats, whatever way you want to end up calling it. So you don't have to tell a story. You don't have to force your story to go in another format. If you feel this needs to be a docu-series, then by all means it should be a docu-series, and make it a 3-part, 6-part, 8-part, 10-part, it doesn't matter. Whatever serves the story better, because the flexibility is there today on a streaming service to be able to do that. And this is a movie, this is a series, this is a movie which is longer, this is a series which is like 20-minute episodes and shorter, or this can be 7 episodes. I think that flexibility is lovely. So today, what for me is like, you keep jumping, what's the best way of telling the story? Okay, this is a 10 episode. Great, let's tell it as a 10 episode. Why are we compromising on that? And I honestly, I'm a fan of every format of filmmaking. I love docus, I love indie films, I love big screen theatricals, I love series. I love all kinds of movies. So for me, it's just like if you love all kinds of movies and you're a fan, then why not also try and do the same thing? So then it's like you don't want to get stuck in within a format.
And along with your directorial choices, I also love your casting. If you can tell us a bit about how you ended up casting Ananya and Vihaan here, and then your general, how you look at casting.
So I think casting, in Control's case, I think when we wrote the film and it needed a very definite young actor who almost in a way, and Ananya will kill me if I say this, but almost in a way is very trollable in that sort of sense, is that and that's the whole point, is that because she's trollable is when she surprises you, and that's the flip that happens in the film as well. That's the flip that happens in real life. I think it's happening in her life, and I'm so happy for her because it's happening for all the people who were like, "Arey, she's nothing." Is now the fact that she's proving herself. I'm so happy for that. I think part of it was that, but also I had seen her work. I had seen her work in Gehraiyaan. I was very, very impressed by the way, she performed, especially in that film. And then when I met her, again, very impressed, because it's like somebody who's got their head on their shoulders, somebody who is so secure of who she is, and is not living in her own little bubble in a bad way. She's living in her own bubble in a good way. And I think that was very nice, and that's when the casting started, like, it really fit. Like, okay, she fits perfectly well. People have a preconceived notion, and it's great, and that's exactly the kind of actor you want in the film. It's what the film's about. And the way that the character breaks that is the way that Ananya breaks it, and I think that's why that casting. And then Vihaan was on audition, literally. Like, I saw him on audition, really liked his audition and casting. And that's generally what I think happens with most things. I think that when you have a great casting director who really knows how to be able to get the right person for you, like, time after time. And I think there's also that you make instinctive choices. You have to make instinctive choices. I think as you can't overthink it. Sometimes, yes, it's a struggle. You're always searching for that perfect actor for that perfect role. But sometimes you know it in 10 seconds, 10, 20 seconds. It happened on Sacred Games with Kartikar, with Jitu Joshi. Like 20 seconds of his audition, he's Kartikar. So I don't even want to see the others. It's okay, lock karo. And that's wonderful when that happens. So I think you have to go with instinct a lot, and hope that your casting director has understood your brief, has understood what the character is based on the script and the material you sent them, and that they've done a good job.
And when do you step in as a director? Like Vihaan said recently that you don't give too many technical notes, you don't overwhelm them with a lot of direction. Like when do you nudge them? When do you know that you should take a back step?
So it honestly, I think it also depends from format to format. I think that because Control is a film, and especially for Vihaan, in fact, because he had to do at one point in time this really long kind of 6-minute piece, which is so for me, it's like once you know what sometimes you want. Sometimes an actor will struggle. So if you know that, okay, I've got it on the editing table, I've got those 4 shots, I can use that from there, that from there, that from there. In your mind, if you know, if you're an editor in your mind, then you know exactly what you've got, then you have it. I generally like to give kind of more macro notes. It's more about, okay, more anger or less thinking, more spontaneous. You know, it's okay if you fumble your lines. It's okay if you kind of like do that. I try not to get too granular, too much. Ke yaar ye line pe na aise bol dena. I just find that sometimes ends up becoming, and you can see through it. You know, like it's like if at any point in time, they say this about writing. If at any point in time you can see the writer in a film, then that's not a good idea. So if at any point in time you can see the actor in a film, that's not a good idea. It's like you have to see the character. It always has to be. So I try and give the actor as much agency as I can give them. It's like they have to perform it. At the end of the day, I'm not performing it. Like, I know a lot of directors do that. They will go in front and they'll say, "Aise karo," and that's fine. That's a method. I personally don't like that. Yeah.
Vikram, you can get a lot of big stars if you want. But surprisingly, you have not worked with big stars, barring, say, Sacred Games mein Saif and all that. And Lutera, even though Ranveer and Sonakshi were there, they were popular stars at that time, not very big stars. Is it a conscious choice, or does budget also play a role here?
You know, I think part of it, and I could be wrong, I think part of it comes from the fact that the kind of films that I liked, or at least liked to make back then, or the kinds of films that I was doing. If you take an Udaan, you take a Lutera, or you take a Trapped or a Bhavesh, I think that there was those are movies that I think a big star in the movie would have done a disservice to the film itself. And I think that there is that you know, that in fact it's I wrote Udaan with Ajay Devgan in my mind. Like he was my visual face when I'm writing the father's character. But I never took the film to him. I never ever took it to him, because part of me is going, he'll be too big for this movie. If like he'll overwhelm the film, and I might have been completely wrong. And part of me is also going, yeah, he's going to say no. What's the point of taking it to him? And maybe he would have said yes. Quite honestly, maybe he would have said yes. Maybe I'm the one who should have just taken it to him and said, you sometimes actors surprise you. You never know. Sometimes you take the stars saying, nahi yaar, ye karenge hi nahi. Why would they do a debutant's movie? So maybe my mistake. But sometimes but there is a little bit of like, yeah, I don't know if having someone like that is a good thing or a bad thing. Are they going to take too much attention from what the story is about? It's a boy story. It's a story about that. So I think then that becomes the whole, you take a very kind of like moral, sort of like, you know, overview, the purist overview, not moral. You look at it from a slightly purist perspective when you do it. Lutera was I mean, Bhavesh again, it needed somebody young, it needed somebody fresh, it needed somebody just like new. And then everything else has been, I think, when one has had to, in Sacred Games, for example, or Jubilee, or in Control, where, you know, that this could have been done with a new actor, but I thought Ananya was perfect for this. I thought she really sort of like fit in. So in those matters, then I will always go and chase. But yeah, but maybe 10 years ago, the big stars are trying to do something different. I feel that today they are very open to, you know, doing films that are not within the Bollywood box.
Okay.
I find that is interesting.
But do you think also right now Bollywood is a bit bogged down by the prevalent star system, because that is also blamed for a lot of films not doing well? Are we too fixated with it?
Yeah, we need to take more risks. I feel that generally, yes, 100%. The system needs to take more risks. I think that we get too, but if the star's not there, and this is again, I think it just becomes people trying to save their jobs. I have to be very critical. It's like, it's just, you know, sometimes just take a risk, yeah. You know, it's like, yes, if a film costs this much and you want a star, but if you know, like, give it a little bit more and then do it without a star. And, you know, sometimes that's better. And time and again, we've seen enough examples where those risks end up working. But it needs a strong producer and a very confident producer to end up going and taking risks like that. in movies. We are a little bit bogged down also because there's only that limited number of stars. How many films can you end up making? And I feel that needs to change. I feel that with Netflix coming in and the streaming services coming in, that has changed to a large extent, at least in the series format. We've realized in the series format is you don't need stars to be able to, I think, great stories. The risk is always in the first season, but if something really works in the first season, then you're off to the races. Then it doesn't matter who's there. Those people become stars automatically. But I wish, for example, if you take the Marvel universe, for example, the fact that other than Robert Downey Jr., every other actor there is a star that got created afterwards. They weren't stars when they came on board, but they became movie stars after the films came out. So, I wish that we do more of that. But I think it's a matter of time.
Okay.
I'm optimistic.
You last time I interviewed you, you had mentioned that earlier when the film industry was set up in Bombay and it grew as an industry, a lot of people came from outside. The stories traveled with them, and now probably we are in a kind of Bombay bubble where we are not also getting stories which are fresh, original. How do you think we can solve that problem?
We need to start looking at local literature as well first. The local sources of writing. That's the main thing. It's the local stories. And local stories are coming from literature, they're coming from writing, they're coming from articles, they're coming from whether it's word of mouth or what are the stories in the small towns, what are the stories in the villages, what's the imagination of people other than the imagination of people within your bubble. Because at the end of the day, at some point in time, our reference points are what? Reference points are the books we read, the movies we watch, the lives we live. And I'm saying utna hi hai, but I'm saying there's such a large world out there and so many stories to be told. So I think it's a question of being able to dig deeper and find those stories. So there are certain things that are happening. For example, whether it's there's a lot of marketplaces right now for books to screen. Mami does one, and a lot of publishers have got outreach things with producers where you can go in and look at literature. There are some great screenplay writing programs. The Screenwriters Association does one, Writers Inc. does one, where they mentor writers to come in and be able to develop their screenplays with mentorship programs. And that's opened, and because now I don't think you need to be in the city anymore, need to be in Bombay anymore to be able to do that. You can be wherever you are. You can be behind your desk sitting in a small town in MP, and you can still have that same access that anybody else anywhere else has. So it's getting a little bit more democratic, I think, bit by bit. But yes, digging deeper to be able to really, really find those. I think the method to be able to say what's the story of a factory worker who works in Chhattisgarh, for example, who has a great story to tell. How does he access stories? I think if we can find a way of bridging that gap, of being able to say that those true stories can come out, I think that'll be perfect. It is there. But I do think it is bit by bit. I think there is a little bit of change. I think a lot of the new writers that are coming in are not the Bombay-based writers who are telling those stories. I think there's a lot that are happening, and a lot of interesting filmmakers coming in from other places.
Yeah. But you are famously, you are someone who has worked in various departments of filmmaking. So how do you, like here also you are a co-writer. What is the process? Like how involved do you get today? Because now you can have an editor, you can have a music person. Like how involved do you get, and
but
how much?
The fun of filmmaking is to be involved in all these processes. No? If I'm not, it's like, look, in the end of the day, it's the process of making is actually the most exciting process of filmmaking. I think that I'm a director because I enjoy that process the most. If I didn't like actually spending time with my writer writing or with my editor editing or sort of like, working that process or sort of like doing it, then I wouldn't want to be a filmmaker anymore. I think that is what really drives me every single day to wake up and find a solution to that problem. So this is the problem in the screen. Let's attack it. Let's get on a call. Let's sit together. Let's ideate. Let's brainstorm. Let's do these things. I think that is very exciting for me. The same thing in the editing process. Same on sound. I love music. I love sound. I love these processes and being able to go in and do it. I have maybe over the years become a little bit more I delegate more than what I would once upon a time. In fact, I didn't have my own assistant till I made Sacred Games. So I think my first 3 films I had no DA. It was like, or Bhavesh actually was the first time I had an assistant. And then I've realized that actually they're actually very useful.
And you have
You
been
can
one
delegate a lot
once.
and I've been myself, you can delegate a lot of work to these people. And I tried, so it works two ways. One is the fact that you're throwing work their way and saying, karo. So they learn. And you also be able to, it helps me stay objective. I think that's very important thing. As I've learned, you know, as I've got more experience, that objectivity is something that, especially in filmmaking, is a rare thing that it's a rare luxury that one must try and have as much as one can. What happens when you get subjective is that then you know every word, you know every dialogue, you know, then what are you basing your judgment on? How do you say, take this out? How do you say, get rid of it? And I think that I'm trying to stay objective as much as I can. So that's something that I've...
But do you show your work to certain people before you
Yeah. I'll always
lock
show
it?
my work. I'll always show my work. It's very important.
Do you change as per their suggestion or whatever?
I think you buy with experience. Experience tells you your own judgment. I think at some point in time, so you know, okay, if of course if everybody's saying the same thing, then clearly then there is a problem. But if 3 people are saying yes and 5 people are saying no, then you have to take your own call and then understand what needs to be done. I think that it also, the experience that you get is to be able to know macro level notes. Okay, yeah, I know that scene is not perfect, or the scene is a page too long or a minute too long, but tell me overall, what is working, what is not working? Were you invested or not invested? Then those are larger problems, and I'm like, chalo, I can fix those. Chota cheez you know will get fixed anyway. So I think that those are things that you learn to sort of like do that. But I know there's a lot of filmmakers who don't share. They won't share their scripts, they won't share their edits, and I just think that's a very bad practice. Yeah. Know who to trust. But you must share. I mean, eventually you're going to share it with an audience of millions, then why would you not share it with 10 people before? I think it's a crucial part of filmmaking.
Among all your films, what is the most satisfying work you do? Or near perfect work that you have done?
Near perfect work is nothing, quite honestly. I don't think any of my work is perfect. I think actually Control is probably the closest to it. 95-minute film. It's tight, it's fun, it's got great music and great performances, and it's like a nice cracking thriller and stuff like that. I don't. The one that I do think is closest to perfect, I can't say the name on this because it belongs to the rival. So
Jubilee?
I'm not saying it. From the movies, I would probably have to go back and still say Udaan, because it's just like it's one of those things that just came together really well. I think it was a good script and it came together well. It was, you know, it happened at the right time with the right actors and the right energy. It's just something that happened, you know. So that is, and the one I'm most proud of as a director is Bhavesh. I just think that that's something that started off, and I think the vision that one had for the film, to do an almost graphic novel-y kind of vision into a Bombay world. I think we really achieved something quite nice in that, in terms of like creating this grungy, interesting superhero type world and that super type vision, which is very unique. And I would say that. And film is a different thing. Yeah, but.
Who are the masters you will ask aspiring directors to watch?
Oh, watch Hitchcock, watch Kurosawa, Ray, for sure, 100%. Closer home, I would 100%, I mean, again, and this is personal affinity, Manmohan Desai, I think, is one of the greatest filmmakers we've had. Amongst the modern filmmakers, Kashyap, Raju Irani, Zoya, really like their work. But yes, from the masters of in terms of cinema, I mean, Kurosawa, Hitchcock, Billy Wilder for sure, Fellini, Bergman, who else? Scorsese, Kubrick, Steven Spielberg. In the modern day, Mr. Nolan, I think, is truly a modern master. His films are just incredible. David Fincher is probably my favorite modern director. I just wish he did more work. It's like there's that period in time from Fight Club till Social Network, which was just anything he touched, Zodiac and anything he touched was absolutely just magnificent.
Any movie or series that blew your mind recently?
Recently, oddly enough, I've been watching a lot of the Film Heritage Foundation is bringing a lot of these screenings. I've been watching a lot of the stuff again. So I saw Sholay on screen again, and there's the Italian festival up next week, and so I'm very excited to go that. What blew my mind recently, and recently means a year ago, is I saw they did a screening of Metropolis all over again.
Yeah.
And that film blew my mind. I think it is and because it's silent and because it's German and because it's made at a time when a lot of people are not used to watching that. I think it's probably the greatest film ever made. It's just it's spectacular and it's so relevant today. 100 years later, we're talking about the same stuff. We're talking about capitalism. You're talking about inequality. You're talking about that, but it's sci-fi and there's all these just magnificent moments in that film. It's a big. It's an epic. Yeah. I was really blown away by that.
I watched a couple of your interviews. You have mentioned in these interviews that you love genre movies, big spectacles. So will you make something like that in your future?
100% in the future. I think it's a great time now. I think the time has come where you can make unfiltered, pure kind of like spectacle movies right now. We don't have to. I don't think we're forced anymore to have to throw in a love story dal do, a gana dal do, that kind of stuff right now. I mean, if it's there and if it works the narrative, great. But I don't think that's a necessity anymore to be able to make that kind of spectacle. I find that very refreshing. So I'm very excited.
We are excited. Will that be your next movie? Because you mentioned somewhere that you were writing a movie.
I'm writing multiple movies, so I hope so. Let's see.
All the best, Vikram. Lovely
Thanks,
chatting
Olga.
with you. Yeah. Looking forward to the film
yes,
next
please.
week. Yeah.